Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour à tous. Welcome to the 67th meeting of the Standing Committee on Industry, Science and Technology. And welcome Minister Parody and Minister Bernier. You're talking about the main estimates. We just want to briefly introduce those who are with Minister Bernier and Minister Parody. We have John Nubley, who's the Deputy Minister. We have Marie-Josée Théverge, Assistant Deputy Minister, Small Business, Tourism and Marketplace Services. Ian Stewart, who's Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy Sector. Mitch Davies, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Science and Innovation Sector. Susan Pincoletta, Chief Financial Officer, Comptrollership and Administration Sector. So I will begin. Minister Parody, will you begin your comments, and then we'll go to Minister Bernier afterwards.
Thank you, Chair, and hello to all the members of the committee. C'est un plaisir d'être ici.
It's a pleasure to be here today. I can see that time is going by quite quickly, as quite a bit of work has been done over the last of the year, and I'd like to perhaps update you on the progress, along with our priorities and some of the items that will stem from our main estimates. First of all, we're talking about the reinforcement of the manufacturing area, innovation for industry, promotion of entrepreneurship, venture capitalism, improved market access, which were adopted, measures that were adopted, and work that is underway. I'll be glad to talk about any of these items. I'm accompanied by my Mr. Nubley, and others from industry, Madame Théverge and Mr. Stewart. Don't be shy. I have all sorts of expertise up here, and we will do our very best to answer your questions and concern. After many years of growth, uneven growth, we still are at the crossroads and hoping that the government will continue its efforts to overcome this economic downturn, which is global in nature, and hopefully we will arrive at some economic prosperity for Canada. We've already had some pretty good results. 465,000 jobs have been created, which is higher than the levels before the recession, the greatest growth of the G7 or G8 during this period. The GIP is much superior to what we had before the recession. It's also the best performance of the G7. We'll continue to invest in those drivers, economic drivers, which continue to increase the productivity of our economy, reduce taxes as well, and which won't displease my colleague here, and respect the estimates and the reduction of the debt.
Industry Canada will be allocated $1.16 billion through main estimates in 2013-14, which will directly support our jobs and growth agenda. In addition, subject to the will of Parliament, Industry Canada and the industry portfolio will implement measures put forward in the Economic Action Plan 2013 and associated parties. One of Industry Canada's priorities is to help manufacturers succeed in the global economy. Let's note that manufacturing accounts for 1.1 million jobs across Canada, generates 13% of Canadian GDP, and conducts almost half of the R&D performed in Canada. Key areas I will highlight include automotive and aerospace and space sectors, defense procurement, and advanced manufacturing. As you remember, Prime Minister Harper announced last January an additional $250 million over 5 years in the Automotive Innovation Fund. In March, our Economic Action Plan announced ongoing funding to sustain and improve the strategic aerospace and defense initiative, $110 million over 4 years to create an aerospace technology demonstration program, and forthcoming consultations on the creation of a national aerospace research and technology network. These measures will strengthen Canada's position as a global leader in the production of aerospace and space goods and services. Economic Action Plan 2013 also committed to reform the current procurement process, develop key industrial capabilities, and consider ways to target industrial and regional benefits. These actions will promote export opportunities and help ensure that all major procurements include a plan for Canadian industry participation. And Industry Canada will also work with the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario in order to develop world-class manufacturing initiative supported through five years program beginning in 2014 for an amount of $200 million. Pour compléter le plan d'action économique, le capital de risque du gouvernement.
In order to complete our economic action plan, the risk capital objectives for the Canadian government were announced in our 2012-13 action plan, which will advance, of course, the Canadian standing. $60 million over 5 years to finance startups and incubation companies. We also are going to provide $180 million over 4 years for youth enterprises. We'll also invest further in enterprises and business which will assist in accelerating entrepreneurship, prizes, for example, and awards, recognition. Various projects find themselves choked off, and this will allow them to continue. As for innovation, we know innovation is very important, and we know that it is a driver for productivity and growth. It improves the quality of life as well. Last year, I mentioned to the committee that Goodyear was the recommendations made by Mr. Jenkins, I believe, or the Jenkins panel. We followed up on some of these recommendations. We're going to provide $1.1 billion over 5 years for IRAP and other programs of the like, research, SHRED, industry-driven projects, of course, the NSERC, and private business partnerships. In our 2013 action plan, we also provided supplementary support for the CNRC, NSERC again, the NRC, and NS Goodyear.
They've been promoting fair trade, is strengthening our marketplace framework policies which set the conditions for companies to compete, innovate, and invest. We also introduced changes to our investment review process, including guidelines for state-owned enterprises, timelines for national security reviews, and the threshold reviews under Investment Canada Act. And following the passage of Corporate Modernization Act last year, we are continuing to improve our intellectual property protections. We recently introduced, as you know, the Combating Counterfeit Product Act. Également, Monsieur le Président, il y a toujours.
Also, Mr. Chairman, we also want to promote a digital economy, e-business, throughout the world, and making it a world-class situation, because we are there for digital technology, and Canada will always remain a leader in the field of ITC. We're going to add extra money to the NSERC rather, for innovation in these fields, other programs and funding. There's also the Megahertz project, which will be implemented at sometime during this year to foster and promote the digital economy. We're determined to move forward with these measures and others in the Economic Action Plan to reinforce our digital leadership, to reinforce our capacities and expertise to the benefit of all Canadians. I know that there are a number of committees looking at this currently, including your own committee, and I'd be happy to assist or advise in any capacity possible. Industry Canada, as you can see from what I've said earlier today, will continue to improve our competitivity and sustain the objectives of our government, which is to create durable jobs for all Canadians and for the Canadian economy. Thank you very much, Mr. Paradis. Mr. Bernier. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon and to have this opportunity to speak of my portfolio, which is PME, Small and Medium Enterprises, and Tourism. I'm accompanied by Marie-Josée Vierge and Mr. Stewart.
Take this opportunity to share with you the important work that this government has been doing to support two areas of great value to this country, small business and tourism. Comme plusieurs d'entre vous le savez,
as many of you know, I'm originally from the Beauce region of Canada. I'm very proud to be a Beauceron. And my region is known as the realm or the kingdom of the entrepreneurs. in Quebec and in Canada. These are bootstrap engineers. They're innovative, they're creative, they're entrepreneurs at heart, and they have made the reputation of our region. It's an honor for me to defend the interests of all Canadian entrepreneurs. I do so by sitting at the cabinet table. I'm there to defend their interests and speak on their behalf, and my role, if we can say, is to be their advocate at the decision-making table. Small and medium-sized industries are very important in Canada. 99% of businesses in Canada are small, medium-sized. They contribute 40% of our gross domestic product. They create the highest number of jobs in the private sector. And when I meet business people, men and women, in my riding or elsewhere, in my riding, for example, when I go door to door, or elsewhere when I'm in the various regions, either at round tables or conferences with these entrepreneurs, I always present the same message. All I can say to them is thank you. Thank you because you, the entrepreneurs, are the job creators. You are generating wealth for Canada, and you are those who are responsible for the fact that Canada managed to survive and surmount the last fiscal crisis.
Entrepreneurs say to me in return, they're saying always the same thing. There is too much government on the back of businesses and too much government in their pockets. Et le but de notre gouvernement d'abord est de créer.
So one of the objectives of our government then is to create the environment whereby business can grow and prosper. This is why we have taken measures to allow entrepreneurs to keep more of their money to themselves so that they can reinvest in their enterprises and businesses. We've reduced the tax rate from 12 to 11%. For the same reason, we've established a tax credit for entrepreneurs to encourage them to hire a new employee. And the same motivation led us to streamline the paperwork, the red tape. They're always saying there's too much government on their backs and too often in their pockets, so we're reducing the paperwork. I've also co-directed an inquiry group to submit a report to the government, and the government, in its wisdom, has decided through the auspices of the President of the Treasury Board, Mr. Tony Clement, to go ahead with the recommendations. Entrepreneurs have also indicated that they have identified 2,300 irritants which they have to overcome on an almost daily basis, issued from 18 departments or agencies of the federal government. We gave them an attentive ear. We heard them out, and 40% of the recommendations are going to be implemented. The rest will be implemented between now and about a year from now.
Production Commission has already been implemented. It is the one-for-one rule. If the government wants to introduce a new regulation, the government needs to scrap an existing one. Our government believes that this new rule will turn off the tap of government red tape so entrepreneurs can spend their time growing their business, not growing the government. Nous avons aussi conclu des partenariats avec 9 provinces et 3 territoires et plus.
We've also concluded partnerships with 9 provinces, 3 territories, and over 650 municipalities to the program which is called BizPal. BizPal, which is a service offered to Canadians, offering all the administrative assistance as provided by federal, provincial or municipal governments. It's a website, very often consulted, very popular with the business world and with entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs. We want Quebec to be the 10th province to participate in this very, very popular program.
With the Canadian Youth Business Foundation, which has helped over 5,000 young Canadians start their own businesses. Notre gouvernement supportera toujours la création d'emplois au Canada.
The government will continue to support entrepreneurship in Canada. As you know full well, I'm very proud to work in close collaboration with all stakeholders in the tourist sector in Canada. It's a good news announcement, I guess, from the tourist sector. It's in bloom this year, in full growth. We've had 13 consecutive quarters where there has been an uptick in tourist participation. The money spent in the tourism sector, airplane tickets, hotel rooms, restaurants, was $81.9 billion. This is an increase of 4.2% since 2011. The employment has also gone up in the area of tourism from to attain 614,000 jobs last year. Last year, I launched a federal strategy, tourism strategy, which you can find on our internet site, government site. A very straightforward strategy, of course. It eliminates the various irritants in the tourism area, the tourism industry, so that this sector can grow as quickly as possible over the next few years. One important part of this strategy, we establish an overall steering committee, which meets frequently with administrators and leaders in the industry to look at the progress and report back, and to ensure that it's all of government that is involved in this strategy, bearing in mind the priority given to the tourism as an industry. I can give you a little example. The Minister of Immigration, which cooperates quite closely with us, Jason Kenney, has increased significantly the visa application centers throughout the world. It was one of the requests we received from the industry. If we want to draw more foreigners to Canada, we have to make it easy for them to get a visa. So these visa issuance facilities have gone from 130 centers in 95 countries. Last year, Canada issued a record number, almost 1 million visas to our visitors. We'll continue to promote Canada on various markets abroad. Last February, I had the honor and the privilege, together with the Canadian Tourism Board, Commission rather, and its CEO, Mrs. McKenzie, to go to India for a focus program, Focus Canada 2013, organized by the Canadian Tourism Commission to promote Canadian tourism abroad, particularly, of course, the Indian market. The number of tourists from India and from China has increased radically, even again this year. The Canadian Tourism Commission has decided to concentrate on emerging markets as being the most having the most potential for the upcoming years. And needless to say, I'm here to answer your questions, and I thank you for this opportunity to participate in your discussions and debate. Thank you.
Questions? I just wanted to let members know that if you're going to ask questions in regards to the report on plans and priorities, please refer to the sections, because if you have it electronically, it has page numbers, but the witnesses don't have page numbers on theirs. So just refer to section. It'll be a lot easier, more efficient. And also, after 5:30, the officials will remain here, so those members who don't have to travel, I know some do, will continue to have access to the officials, and we can continue our rounds of questioning. And we've also looked after the last bus apparently leaves here at 6 p.m. We're going to ask them to hold it so that any members that need to get a bus, we'll make sure there's one here. Now we'll go on to the rounds of questions. The first round, 7 minutes, and Mr. McColman for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, ministers, for taking time out. I know your very busy schedules to be here and to give us the outline and update that you have. I'd like to focus in on small business, because that was my background for 25 years as a business owner in the construction industry prior to coming to Ottawa, and I hold frequently business roundtables and economic roundtables leading into our budgets, and I'm hear exactly what you have articulated, Minister Bernier, in terms of red tape. Another area of concern that I hear frequently is duplication that prevents that adds cost to running a small business. And in the case of my part of the country, which is Southwest Ontario, there are provincial I would call them requirements and policies that require certain things in the development industry as well as in the construction industry, and they are duplicated at the federal level in many departments. Is your department working with provinces and territories, or at least maybe not working with, but making sure that where there is duplication, there is a hard look at that to see whether it is absolutely necessary? I'll give you an example. Taking a raw piece of land that is zoned properly for building often requires some environmental studies, heritage studies at the provincial level. These are duplicated at the federal level. And when you apply at the federal level, they tell you, we will not accept the report that you gave to the provincial government. Start all over again, do it all over again. Hence, taking a piece of property that is properly zoned for an industrial development may take as many as 5 years to bring on stream. I cite that example for you as a real-life example, and ask you to please comment on, there's not only the need for a great reduction and simplification of red tape and the processing, but also of these duplication items. Minister Bernier?
Merci. Before answering your question, I just want to correct myself. In my introduction remarks, I said that the expenses coming from the tourism industry, I said $8.1 billion. It's more than $81.9 billion. That's all the money that is spent in the tourism industry in a year. So it is not 8.1, but $81.9 billion a year spending in the tourism industry. So I'm sorry about that. And concerning your question, I think you're absolutely right. It is why we have this website called BizPal. Very simple, and I encourage the members to go and Google BizPal. So you'll see all the regulations that a business person has to comply with when you want to start a business. So if you are in the food industry or restoration or things like that, you have all the industry, and if you're living in London, Ontario, you'll be able to know all the regulation that is applied to you as a business people who want to start a new business at the municipal level, at the provincial level at the same time, and at the federal level. So, and sometimes there's a lot of regulations. When we did our consultation, when I was chairing the Red Tape Reduction Commission, business people told us that it is great if you reduce red tape at the federal level, but why not speaking with your counterparts at the provincial level, because there's a lot of regulation there also. And my answer was very simple. It's we don't have jurisdiction over the provinces, but I can assure that business people and Canadians that we will be in contact with our provincial counterpart to do the same thing. I know that in BC, they're doing a lot of effort also to reduce red tape that they impose on their small businesses, and some province will take, I hope, our report and try to implement that, the same kind of report at the provincial level. But you're absolutely right. When we reduce red tape, as you know, time is money. The less time a business person spends in working for free for government, he will have more time to work for himself and create wealth and job in this country. So our goal is to do our best at the federal level, but at the same time, yes, to be sure that the provinces are able to do the same, and we need the willingness at the political level in each provinces, and I'm pleased to see what's happening in BC, and I hope that the other province will follow our lead.
Thank you. Mr. Parody, you had mentioned in picking up on the idea of small businesses, small, medium-sized enterprises, the promotion of entrepreneurship, and you alluded in your comments to a couple of initiatives that would deal with awards and promoting incubators. Can you go into a little more detail on just the focus that our budget 2013 puts into the area and the emphasis that we have in making sure we not only grow but keep the existing small businesses healthy and give them the platform for growth.
Yes, this is very important, and I think we have to especially combine 2012 and 2013 in terms of budget, because in 2012 we announced this venture capital fund of $400 million, and so now it will be announced soon how this will be managed. But what is interesting about the small and the medium-sized enterprise, what I saw everywhere in the country when I hold roundtables, there is a lot of innovators here, and having angel capitals is something okay. But after that, we always hear when it gets the time to commercialize, when it gets the time to go to commercialization process, this is an issue. Usually people choke. The angel funds are exhausted, I would say. So now this is where people need some money. So of course, what was interesting in the last budget, there will be from 2012 this venture capital fund, but on a smaller scale, you will have also accessible. You have there is this $60 million over 5 years that was announced. So this will be funds available for these enterprises to, to get further. And what is interesting too, there is $100 million that was announced to the Bank of Development of Canada, and this will be specially dedicated to help enterprises coming from an incubator and accelerator. So where there was nothing in the past, now the federal government decided to fulfill the gap.
Thank you, Minister Paradis. Sorry, the time is always our enemy in this case. Now on to Madame LeBlanc for 7 minutes.
Merci. Monsieur Paradis.
Thank you very much. My first question for Mr. Paradis. The NDP introduced a motion in the House to deal with the Investment Act. I'd like to understand what the net benefit test is that was introduced in 2012. The two motions were carried with the support of all parties. Paragraphs 136 to 145 of the Implementation Act brings important modifications to the Investment Act in Canada. Are you going to see that there's an overall comprehensive review, in depth, of the Canada Investment Act in committee? Well, I believe that the measures that we've taken are very substantive. We began with a very, very important tool in the law, which are the guidelines, if you will, to undertake a review last December. We sought to clarify the rules governing foreign companies, and what we're proposing in the legislation is to move forward, of course, to establish various thresholds, limits, 340 million, and we're going to step by step go to 500, 800 to arrive at $1 billion, so that sovereign funds will be capped. Thank you, but are you going to seek the study of this review and revision in committee? Well, I've just replied to that question. According to the review that we have conducted, we're satisfied with our understanding of the net benefit. There are 6 subcategories which are going to be considered. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Will the government consult to review the impact of all the changes it has brought to this law over the last 4 years? We are constantly consulting. There are roundtables underway throughout the country at all times, so we're constantly updating our consultation. The clarification of the rules that we've announced was very well received in the country. And internationally, Canada has always and still maintains its reputation as being open for business. Last May, you announced that the present threshold is $330 million, depending on the assets of the company, and will move to $1 billion over the next few years as to the business numbers, the gross, as you've just mentioned. Has the government seriously evaluated the impact this will have on the Canadian economy, the repercussions, particularly on Canadian companies, the impact that these new levels or maxima will have? We know that A lot will go through the Investment Canada process, and they will probably show a net benefit for Canada. Have you looked at, seriously, the impact on the Canadian economy and on Canadian businesses? Absolutely. Reports have been tabled rather on competitivity, or the Wilson report drafted by experts, and we are implementing the recommendations made in those reports. All foreign investment proposed for Canada or within Canada would have to give notice, of course, depending on the amounts involved. We will determine or not if there is a net benefit for Canada, and everything will be submitted to national security rules, of course, considerations, I should say, because this is necessary today. Thank you. I'll share my time with Mr. Harris now.
Mr. Minister, the 2008 Spectrum auction generated $4.25 billion in revenue for the federal government. Scotia Capital is estimating that the upcoming 700 megahertz auction will generate $2.6 billion. The federal government has not yet released any estimates as to how much money how much revenue it believes or anticipates that the government will make with the upcoming auction. Will you let us know today how much the government anticipates making from the upcoming auction?
First of all, when we go with the spectrum, it's not in terms of having target revenues. So what we announced in last March was the rules, and we have a floor. We have a floor price. I don't have it by heart, but I could track this out for you. So the way that the floor price is established is to make sure that the Canadians have their fair share coming from this public good. And then after that, of course, the market will compete, and this is the way it works.
Certainly, if the officials could provide it
was
to the committee
announced,
later.
and this is in public domain. I will be happy to follow.
Is the government planning on using any of this revenue to invest into telecommunication infrastructure improvements?
It's not determined yet. It's not determined yet because you know we are active as we speak. We also announced new infrastructure funds, new money. And some telecom project will likely be eligible. So I guess the responsible way to manage is to go to set a target, get there, but also see what the needs are in the meantime. So we are very confident that with the 700 spectrum auction, this will be a good opportunity for getting more competition with the policies that we put in place.
Well, certainly it's important to have a target and
starting price
plan.
were set up at approximately $900 million just for the good of the community.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that is considerably lower than Scotia Capital's estimates.
Starting price, sir.
Well, we've got a bottom, but we don't have a plan to make sure we get enough money for Canadians. Quickly going back to the Investment Canada Act, with the changes in the raising of the threshold up to eventually $1 billion, it raises the prospect that a company could potentially go and buy up several companies that are under that threshold, never have to face a review, and end up with a very large market share. Are there any provisions planned in the Investment Canada Act to deal with that eventuality?
Well, as I said, there is always there has to be a notification for all the proposals. There is this national security issue that has to be taken into account through the legislation that was passed in 2009. And if there was going to be a concentration, as you say, we have the Competition Bureau. This is where exactly their jurisdiction. So there is always a way to fully assess what is going on. But I think that we have to keep the principle in mind that we are open for foreign investment. We need foreign investment. It gives the opportunity for players to get on global value chain, and I know that your party and mine have a lot of different views about that.
We're agreed that foreign investment is important, but that New Democrats believe that it has to protect Canadian jobs, and certainly the job that the government did in allowing U.S. Steel to come in has not done the job.
I rather think that you are totally against foreign investment, so this is why.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Parody, that's all the time we have there. Now on to Mr. Lake for 7 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci pour être venu au comité aujourd'hui.
Thank you for your attendance at committee here today, and it's a pleasure to work with you as a parliamentary secretary for industry. And it's an excellent opportunity for someone as myself to learn and practice my French as well. Now, that being done, I'd like to ask you a question, and my colleague I'll share my time with my colleague, Mr. Maid. Mr. Parody, could you explain to us how our economic action plan will impact Industry Canada and its mandate? Well, I think that among the priorities of the department and our action plan, and congratulations on your absolutely lucid and limpid French, Mr. Lake. We know that for the manufacturing sector, many measures have been taken since our coming to power in 2006, as Minister Bernier was talking about red tape reduction, get rid of all these hassles and irritations. We've also reduced taxes, and we now have a tax rate which is approximately 15%, which makes us very competitive and one of the most welcoming for business of the G7. Now we're looking at the automobile sector. We've renewed the $250 million fund for 5 years. It's a major opportunity. This is an innovation fund, and this, of course, is a great economic driver, for anything that is parallel with the automotive sector, which creates thousands and thousands of jobs. Aerospace, as I mentioned earlier, $1 billion, which are going to be secured for the next 5 years to invest. And following the recommendations of the Emerson report, we have technology demonstration projects. So the objective is always the same, to optimize innovation and technology. It's all very well to create, to innovate, but we have to market it. We have to bring it to market. We have to commercialize it, and that's where the value added is. That's where we add wealth, where we add growth to our country. This is why we've often heard of problems for finding access to capital. We created various venture capital funds, as I explained earlier, the $60 million for startups and incubator-type businesses. We also have NSERC funded that they can do a proper matching service, if you will, between small and medium enterprises and the various universities or research centers, so that they can cross-fertilize each other and cross-reference each other. Then again, procurement, military procurement. We're going to optimize the spin-off benefits. Tom Jenkins has provided a budget, and in our action plan for 2013, the Minister of Finance was very clear in specifying that we want to optimize and maximize the spin-off benefits for Canada itself. And we're going to take a look at various factors, whether it's jobs here in Canada. So it's an economic action plan which is very, very productive, very promising. And we shouldn't pass in silence the accelerated capital cost allowance, which is also a very significant assist to the industry, $1.8 billion, I believe. It will allow them to update their machinery and equipment, their facilities. We know that there's somewhat of an inconsistency on the productivity measures between Canada and the United States, and we hope that these measures announced in our action plan will incite people to invest in more technology, new technology, so that we can do more with less. We've seen a tendency over the last few months to invest more heavily, pro rata, if you wish, or proportionately, with new equipment and materiel. We can't rest on our laurels. We have to continue working and smoothing and streamlining so that we can keep the economy growing. Thank you very much, and felicitations. Congratulations, Mr. Lake.
I'll try to fit them in. I know one question I will not be asking either minister is asking for your thoughts or predictions on the playoff series, which will begin tonight between the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, Coach Jacques Demers is the expert. He said Montreal in 7. Yes. I follow him.
Okay.
I would like to ask you, Minister Parody, about the issue of intellectual property rights and copyright. This committee, in fact, recently concluded a very comprehensive study on the issue of intellectual property. Could you update us on some recent initiatives and efforts by the government to enhance intellectual property rights and copyright protections?
Yeah, I think that the major step was to go through with the bill, the copyright bill. I think it was a very, very important point, and now there is the implementation. Now we are at the stage to implement it, so there are several phases, but this is a work in progress, and of course this will help us to continue to negotiate with our trading partners, because we had to level the playing field, but we had to do it on a Canadian way. We had to do it in the best interest of Canadians. So, of course, I will pay a lot of attention about what the committee has done, because this is a very, very interesting area, very important area. And when we have good industries like BlackBerry, for example, when they decide to go worldwide, this is quite something. But we have to keep attracting them here with a good regime, good and solid regime. And once again, we can rest on our laurels. But I think that the major milestone that had to be achieved, and finally we could do it with the majority government, was to adopt the copyright law reform, which was very, very, very expected for a long time.
See. And second, Mr. Braid.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Braid and Minister Parody. And now on to Mr. Regan for 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and bienvenue au ministre. J'apprécie le fait que vous n'avez pas.
Welcome to the Minister. I'm glad you didn't take the full 10 minutes that was allotted to you. I noticed that. Thank you.
Of the changes in the Budget Implementation Bill C-60 to the Investment Canada Act. And that's interesting, but I know of at least 1,000 Canadians and their families who would prefer to see you enforce the current law, and I'm referring, of course, to the U.S. Steel situation. And from what I understand, from what I've heard, the workers in that plant consider your claim this is only a provincial labor dispute an insult. So why haven't you forced U.S. Steel to live up to its commitments to maintain jobs in Canada? Why aren't you enforcing the existing Investment Canada Act?
Well, it depends. When you say it is an insult, it depends if you take a demagogue approach or not. I think you are, with all the respect, you are taking a demagogue approach. You know exactly how the law works. First of all, you have sensitive commercial issues. You cannot put the deal in front of the public, otherwise nobody would come and invest here. So you have some sensitive commercial issues that you have to keep confidential. But that being said, when U.S. Steel did not, first of all, when they acquired Stelco, we had solid requirements. When they were not compliant, we did not hesitate to sue them. It was the first time that the government did that. Our Conservative did that. The Liberal government never did that.
But they aren't maintaining the jobs now.
Never did
so
that
what are you doing
before.
about the situation
I'm getting to
now?
this point. Now, that being said, there is, as you said, this is a labor dispute under provincial jurisdiction, and what we have to do here is fully assess the situation to make sure, because we expect that they will negotiate with good faith. This is what they have to do, and this is what we expect them to do it.
Okay, let me go on to the spectrum option in November. How much has your department set aside, the government set aside in the main estimates for the cost of conducting the spectrum auction in November, and will any of those proceeds be used by Industry Canada to improve, may I finish? Sorry, to improve, to foster more competition in the wireless sector?
It's part of the internal operations. It's part of the budget. So there's no special envelope for that. This is part of the hardcore mandate from the department.
So you can't tell us how much you expect it to cost to run that auction? Well,
we put the resources necessary like we did in 2008, and it worked. So it comes from the operating budget, and I see the CFO saying that the money is there, and we have all of the resources needed to do it.
That's great, but I mean, we're reviewing the estimates, so it's kind of the idea here, Bart, is to be able to find out, what the numbers are.
I agree, but you have the numbers here, and this is part of the operating budget.
But we don't actually in relation to this issue. So let me go on. As you probably heard, there's a feeling among industry analysts that the auction this fall will not provide adequate competition for the big three incumbents. In fact, in Barcelona, you, in fact, acknowledged that the hope for injection of cash from foreign companies or elsewhere hasn't yet materialized. And you urged foreign telecommunications companies to invest in our telecommunications or in our wireless sector. There have been reports that the uncertainty around the rules regarding the transfer or sale of spectrum is a major hurdle to getting foreign investors on board. What will happen this fall if players like Mobilicity and Wind Mobile decide for one reason or another not to participate in the spectrum auction? Do you have a plan B?
Well, you know, we are confident that we will get with a fourth player, because the reason is quite simple. We put a cap, and the incumbent cannot get the fourth paired block. So somebody will go and bid on this. This is a no-brainer. And we think that this policy works. And just to be back in terms of numbers, I told you today in the House of Commons, the prices dropped down by 18% average from 2008. I told it was a StatScan data, but I want to correct it. It was not StatScan. This is a Wall Communication report.
Who?
Wall Communication report that was commissioned by Industry Canada and CRTC. But anyway, I just wanted to clarify it on the record.
Thank you. Are you suggesting that if you were to go out in the street right now and talk to people walking by, that they'd be satisfied that we have low cell phone prices in Canada?
I would tell them that now when we compare...
But what would they tell you? That's the question.
No, I would tell them that when we compare with our peer, we are in the middle average. We dropped down by almost 20%, and this is a work in progress. We will continue. We are dedicated to have a fourth player, and we will do whatever we can in terms of policy to achieve this. And frankly, so far, time gave us reason.
Wind Mobile has said that the limited amount of spectrum that's available to them, to the smaller players in the auction in November, makes it tough for them to bid. And in fact, we have a situation now where all three new entrants are in financial distress or up for sale. Business people like Newton Glassman of Catalyst Capital Group have said, for instance, that if you really want a fourth provider, you need a clear wireless policy. Obviously, he doesn't think you have one. Mr. Glassman would also like to see you start to enforce the rules around issues like access to towers and domestic roaming. Why have you failed to put in place or to enforce the strong policies that markets are demanding?
Well, first of all, I think we succeeded. First of all, we announced a spectrum outlook, which is the roadmap for the 5 years, for the 5 next coming years. When you ask the smaller players what we can do to better help, the matter of life and death is cash, is capitalization. So when they know that spectrum is coming, this is easier for them to capitalize. This is why we launched this roadmap here that was very appreciated.
There's no sign of it.
I just want to point you out that if you go business to business, one by one, they will tell you a different version. And the role for the government is to have a balanced approach. So when you announce a policy, when nobody cheerleads and when nobody is very angry, it means that you strike the balance. And this is exactly
when nobody's investing in these companies. It's not a very good sign. These companies are in financial distress, and nobody seems to want to invest in them.
Well, there were investments, and there are new players, and prices went down by 18%, and we will continue down this road. And when you talk about the roaming and the tower sharing, we announced now broader measure. And if we have to intervene more, we will do it more. But for now, the measure that we proposed these are solutions and comments that we received from the industry.
Well, I'm hearing from the industry.
To let the market go with solid policy.
Thank you, Minister Parady. Minister Regan, that's all the time there. We move on to our 5-minute rounds now, and I'm just trying to hold it tight as I can to get as many people an opportunity as possible. Mr. Carmichael, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, ministers. To my colleague, Mr. Braid, I won't dare enter into the Ottawa-Montreal debate, but I will say that I'm pretty sure this is the Leafs year, so I'll leave it at that. I didn't expect that much hilarity. It was a rocky start last night, but we'll be back. Minister Parady, you spoke about the Automotive Innovation Fund, and clearly it's a $250 million fund. It's a very exciting fund.
supporting innovation in the automotive sector. And I wonder if you could just speak to the fund, how it works, and how does it truly support the auto industry?
Yeah, it's, as I said, we have, you come from the area, it's 440,000 jobs, direct and indirect. And when you see how the world is now today in terms of competition, when you go with volumes, of course, some other economies like Mexico or southern U.S. states, they are competitive in terms of volume. But if you go with high technology, innovation, new products, now we can be real competitive. We have a good corridor of research, of a center of excellencies in Ontario and Michigan. This is something very attractive for the investors. And I think a good example to quote is the Toyota one. They decided to put their hybrid Lexus program in Cambridge, which is very, very good news. And of course, the Automotive Innovation Fund was part of the solution. So this is where we can be champion. This is where we try to attract investments from the OEMs. And this is important to attract investment for the OEMs because you know that we have in Ontario a very, very, very huge industry in terms of part manufacturer, parts. So we have to keep these people, and the idea and the way to keep them is to make sure that we have some OEMs in the cluster. So we are very confident that we will have some good success in the future with the renewed fund of $250 million because so far since we raised over, the private sector invested more than $1 billion since the very first time we announced the first Automotive Innovation Fund. So we see that it generates economic activities, economic benefits, and it helps Canadian plants to be on the cutting edge technology, we is, I think, the best Canadian brand that we can demonstrate, and we don't hesitate to tell the investors that we have skilled labor, very competent labor. We have probably the best one in the world, and Canada is a great place to live. So we can be competitive when we speak about high technology, innovation, and all of this value-added sector.
Well, no, I agree with you totally. I think it's important that a province such as, say, in Ontario's case, who depends so heavily on the automotive sector, to create innovation that's going to surely replace those jobs with more skills, taking the base of that employment base and redefine it. Have you received enthusiastic response from the industry as a whole since the announcement of the renewal?
Yes, absolutely. There are. I can even tell that some projects are up in the air. So of course we'll be happy. The department will be happy to sit down and fully assess them. But I think Ontario has a great track record. When we speak about the GD Powers Awards, this is probably the province that had the most in North America. So that demonstrates that the ingenuity is definitely there. And the fact that we go with AIF like that with this response demonstrates that we are just bang on in terms of good investments.
Great, thank you. Switching channels just a little bit over the aerospace sector and the space sector, I wonder if you could inform us on the recent developments of the Canadian space sector. If you could update us on some of the developments in that area.
Yeah, very briefly, we commissioned a report, and David Emerson tabled very, very interesting recommendations. We have to keep in mind that the last plan dates back from 2005, so there's a way that we can, of course, reshape this long-term space plan, and this is why he said that we need to have a pan-governmental discussion and multi-ministerial approach, and this is work in progress now, but a lot of potential. And in the meantime, major projects like RIDARSAT Constellation mission or participation in the ISS, we didn't hesitate to fund them and to keep remaining the leaders in these areas.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Now to Monsieur Lapointe for 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bernier, Bosseron are great people, but, Rivière-du-Loup is also considered to be a very hot spot, in all of this. Oh, we love competition. Bring it on. I believe that you've cut the Canadian Tourism Commission by twice the amount that was required. Radio Quebec announced a few months ago, and if I was a lawyer, I'd be concerned with that. But there seems to be a consensus that Canada has to promote itself more rigorously outside of Canada because tourism is profitable. Our competitors are investing 2-3 times more than we are. Have you tried to convince your cabinet colleagues not to cut so much? Cut maybe half of that. The budgetary cuts to the Canadian Tourism Commission were conducted in consultation with the Commission itself. The Commission is telling us that it is underfunded. They're telling us this. Well, allow me to answer your question. They provided us with some budgetary constraint plans, and the government has decided to reduce its budget by 20%. 20%. Now, 20%, the tourism industry in Canada, I'm sorry, but this is backpedaling. We're in the 15th ranking. We have a lot of competition internationally. I know that. I'm aware of it. But the Canadian Tourism Commission decided to concentrate on those markets that are yet not as profitable as they might be for Canada. We have a different opinion on the matter. It's not my difference of opinion. The consensus is of the industry itself. They're saying that they need more funding, more funding. What the industry has indicated, and I know that I meet with them regularly, they want to ensure that the government has an overall comprehensive approach as far as tourism is concerned. So you're proud of your $13 million cut then? I have faith in the industry. I have faith in Ms. McKenzie, who is the CEO of the Tourism Commission, that despite these cuts, the Canadian Tourism Commission has been in place for a number of years. She showed her expertise. And you want to talk about cuts? Let me answer. The Commission has received special funding over a number of years for special events, for the Olympics. I'm talking of their last budget only. And right now there's a fund of $58 million.
Of translation, so when you go argumentatively, the translators can't keep up, and there's no way for those who are watching to understand. So please go ahead and finish your answer, Minister Bernier.
Oui, je pense que j'ai bien.
Well, I think I've replied. I think I've replied amply to the question. To be more precise, if you wish, if we take a look at the evolution of the budgets for the Canadian Tourism Commission, $26 million over 5 years for the Olympics program. Well, the Olympics are over, so that's gone. That fund is gone. There were special funding for $48 million, 2009-2010. For the stimulus program. The stimulus program is over. We've over that. $5 million for a special for the 100th anniversary of the Kangaroo Stampede. That celebration is now over. We have special funding for special events. This is not standard budgets. The Canadian Association for Venture Capitalism is opposed to these cuts. In the labor funds, for example. And the Entrepreneurship Foundation says that this is coming at the very worst possible time. Do you not think that these are credible sources? Well, they have their opinion much as you do. I'm not saying that you're incompetent. You just have a different opinion than I do. And I will never say someone is incompetent just because they differ in opinion. Well, how does one justify that these cuts, that the overall package for tourism, particularly SMEs, everyone agrees that this is a very bad decision. If you take a look at the capitalization of the FTQ fund, the labor funds, $8 billion, 15% of this is invested. I know you're very anxious to get the answer, so allow me to do so. $8.8 billion, that's the overall package. That's the fund for the FTQ. 15% of that is invested in startup SMEs in Quebec. We believe that that is very well funded, very well provided, and we have to take a look at the cost to Canadian taxpayers. This is $200 million of lost revenue or foregone revenue for the federal government. I certainly hope that the investment fund will in fact grow over the years for Quebec SMEs. There are other vehicles, other channels that venture capital can be sought. But they're not given to small and medium-sized enterprises in the regions. You know this full well. Well, you said that you are the kingdom of SMEs. Bravo. The boast as well. Why have entrepreneurs succeeded so well then in that case? I just wanted to explain that the free market is such that entrepreneurs can find the money when they really need to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to continue on the theme of tourism and ask Minister Bernier a question. It's in fact exciting to see the profile of Canada increase as an international tourist destination. I think it makes eminent sense that you're focusing on both China and India as sources of tourists to Canada. I'd like to hear more about that strategy. And unlike my colleague across the way, I won't rudely interrupt your answer.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to use that question to also answer what our colleagues from the NDP asked about the expenses at the CTC. And as you know, the government of Canada invested a lot in tourism, not only through the CTC, but only with the other agency and departments. If you look at the budget of the government, the global budget, 939 million was spent in projects, program, and activities that benefit to the tourism sector in 2010 and 2011. This is money that is spending by other departments and that have a positive impact on the tourism industry. So we have to look at the budget of the CTC, but also we have to look at the global budget of the government. And I'm very proud of the work of what they're doing at the CTC. Yes, they had to manage a cut by 9.8% of their budget if you compare with last year. And that's a cut that they can manage pretty well. They are very competent. And now they will focus their energy and their money to the markets where there are a lot of growth for our country. So like India, like China, and also we won't forget U.S. and also other markets that we know. And the way to do that, it's with marketing activities, with focusing on what is nice to see from our country. And I can tell you that there's a lot of participants around the CTC, and they're promoting all the great things that visitors can visit here in Canada. Starting by the Stampede, by the Old Quebec, by the Rockies Mountain and all that. And they're doing that under an umbrella that is the Canadian Tourism Commission. And I was very proud to be in India and to speak with entrepreneurs from the tourism industry. And they were very, first of all, happy to the support that they received from the CTC, but also to see the potential in India for new visitors. If you want to have some details at the market that the CTC will focus on, the key market is China, and that's we've seen biggest increase in arrivals from China. In each 2010, 2011, and 2012, the numbers of arrivals from China increased by 20%. So it is what they're doing at the CDC, it is working. In 2012, China overtook Australia as Canada's 5 top inbound market. Nearly 300,000 visitors from China came to Canada in 2012. Same thing also for India and other markets like that. It's because of the work of the CTC and of the industry also. So we have an efficient and a very good organization in Vancouver promoting our country.
I'm sorry, I'm merely interrupting you for your schedule. I understand that your commitment is done, and so I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time here before the committee. We'll suspend for a moment while the ministers go, and then we'll have time with the officials. And those who can stay, then please stay. I understand that some people have commitments to travel. Begin over with the NDP, and we kind of have a gentlewoman's agreement that now we'll just be taking questioning witnesses and taking evidence. I do want to let you know that the last bus will now be delayed till 6:10. So if we go right till 6 o'clock, and they'll wait for you to pack up things and everything and get on the bus. And now we'll.
Mr. Chair, can I just on a point of order? Just to make sure we're clear. So should we actually move a motion regarding rules or anything like that? I just want to make sure that.
I think it's on the record. And
so people can feel comfortable taking off. We don't have to worry. Okay,
yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we'll move to Madame LeBlanc for 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup. J'aimerais remercier.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our witnesses for staying on a little bit longer and assist us in answering some of our questions. My first question would be addressed to Mr. Nubley, the Deputy Minister, and I'd like to ask him the same question as I asked to the Minister. We have proposed within C60, Part 6, amendments that are rather significant on the Canada Investment Act. And my question, the question I addressed to the Minister was, within Industry Canada, has any study been made as to the ramifications, the impact, the fallout on Canadian companies as there are fewer and fewer transactions that will be passed through the process of Industry Canada? Is there any intention to conduct any studies as to the impact on Canadian business? When we had the Sinuk-Nexon, there was a little bit of a confrontation, whether it's a good thing or bad thing for Canada and the economy. We had a press conference. All of a sudden, there was a change in the rules, and we seem to be going at it rather on a one-off kind of basis. Is there any intention to have an overall comprehensive analysis and to see how a greater number, perhaps, of these transactions might be put under review? Well, as the Minister mentioned, there has been a series of reports commissioned by the Industry Canada. Red Wilson's report, first of all, 2 or 3 years ago, I believe. And then the Jenkins report, once again, dealt with this issue. No, I thank you, Mr. Nubley. I did take a look at those reports myself, and essentially, there's no way in which, we'd like to see this law go through the regular parliamentary process. You know, there's been some changes and some tinkering around the edges here, but it has not been an integral part of the debate in the House of Commons. We're sort of outsourcing policy to these outside experts, and I don't think that this is getting a proper review by the Canadian people through their parliament. We haven't really looked at the consequences and ramifications on the Canadian economy, particularly on Canadian companies.
Worked 20 years ago before I came to become Deputy Minister at Investment Canada, and really these issues have been discussed for many years, and there have been many reports on these issues. I think one thing that I'm very impressed as a deputy minister that joined the department in September and worked through these issues in the fall, is how there's really been since really 2009, a series of changes to the Act that have built towards the announcement that occurred in December.
Yeah. Are you concerned?
So there was the National Security Review changes that were introduced. There were changes related to the Red Wilson report in terms of the thresholds. There were introduction of the new guidelines.
Yeah. But what are the consequences for the firms that are in Canada and that are slowly disappearing, like the homegrown Canadian firms? Is there consequences to that, like the fact that we are loosening and raising the threshold for the thing? Like that's what my question is about, and the vulnerability of our economy, of our Canadian economy, the loss of jobs, the loss of good-paying jobs, and that's the concern that I raise when I see that threshold being raised. Again, I want to mention we are for foreign investment, but we're not sure that this act is really protecting the Canadian jobs here.
Well, I think there's always a question in this debate of balancing the desire to demonstrate openness of the economy to others and to encourage investment. And if you look at the needs of the country in terms of investment, they're very large, whether it's in Nova Scotia or Alberta or wherever. On the other hand, there are the issues of ensuring that we have a strong, robust, Canadian-based series of companies. I think the bottom line is that we have a net benefit test, which has 6 criteria, and those 6 criteria, which have been in place for some time, are really designed to look at these issues that you're raising.
Thank you.
Madam LeBlanc. Now on to Mr. Carmichael for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister Minister Paradis spoke about the VC fund and the Angel Fund, and as a business person, I applaud the effort. I'm very hopeful it's successful. He also mentioned Canada's open for business, and clearly that is an initiative that we all agree with. Taxes under Minister Bernier related to taxes from 12 to 11% on SMEs. Tax credit for hiring, 2 wonderful provisions. And then he spoke about the Red Tape Reduction Commission and talked about 200 irritants were removed in 18 ministries. Is that correct? I think that and then he talked about the one-for-one rule, which I find particularly encouraging. Question on the one-for-one rule: is there a way of auditing or measuring that so that you know, having been through that process, that the intent of it is going to be maintained?
My understanding is that each department has basically been tasked with organizing themselves in terms of applying the one-for-one rule. And I think most departments, including Industry Canada, have set up new units to deal with the issues around the red tape exercise.
Right.
And related to that, Treasury Board, who is in the lead on the red tape exercise, has an evaluation approach annually, I believe, with each department,
Right.
assessing how we're doing in terms of implementing the red tape initiative.
Okay.
And I think we report annually in terms of a scorecard.
Oh, good. Oh, there is a scorecard for it.
Yes.
Excellent. That's encouraging. Why don't we just talk about a couple of youth initiatives? Both ministers spoke to youth issues. Minister Parody talked about youth enterprises, $180 million over 4 years. Was that accurate? Was that? I wrote it down. I'm not sure if I got the right number.
I think it's 18, not
It's
80.
18, okay.
So
Well,
it's 18 million over
clearly I didn't get
for
the
the
right
Canada
number.
Youth Business Foundation. I understand there's an expectation that there would be match funding from the private sector, and John Risley.
So that's in the Canadian Youth Foundation?
No, the Canada Youth Business Foundation, yes.
So I had two groups written down. I had the Canada Youth Business Foundation that Minister Bernier spoke of, and I wrote down youth enterprises that Minister Parody spoke about. Are they separate initiatives?
Yeah, I'm not sure what,
Okay.
I think he must have meant the same, I would guess, but
All right.
we could check with him on that.
Does anybody have any understanding of how the programs work? And specifically, let's talk about the Canadian Youth Business Foundation. Talked about some 5,000 new businesses being incented to develop under that program. Is that?
Yeah, so the Canadian Youth Business Foundation is a not-for-profit organization. I believe John Risley is the chair and of the board that advises it. It's been in place since 1996, and it basically provides loans and mentoring to entrepreneurs between the ages of 18 and 39.
Excellent. Okay. That's all I have at this point,
Thank you, Mr.
Chair.
Carmichael.
Thank you.
Now on to Monsieur Lapointe pour 5 minutes.
Merci. PME subvention.
Jordan Gould, a consultant from Richland McKee, has a position which is quite similar to the Canadian Manufacturers Association, and he's not very enthusiastic about that. Most of the subsidies are very difficult to access by SMEs, and they're much more easily accessible for large enterprises who can, in fact, have more skill in getting these. Now, how does the minister intend to change perhaps this reform so potentially it might help to a greater degree small and medium enterprises rather than just major corporations?
Action Plan of 2013 has taken a number of steps to help small business.
Pouvons-nous nous pencher? Est-ce que vous convenez que cette réforme?
No, but would you agree that this is not very well adapted to SMEs? It's not easy. Regional chambers of commerce consultants have told us that this is very good for major-sized companies, large-sized companies, but SMEs have a very hard time accessing these programs. Okay, would you agree with that? Don't you think that's true?
Particular question, though, we'd want to come back to you. I'm not entirely clear what the issue is.
OK. On va aller, vu qu'on a du temps encore, on va aller à la question du red.
Okay, let's look at the red tape commission or issue. I searched and I searched and I searched, and the only policy I've seen is that to cancel the use of one particular form, but it was replaced by another. Now, 1 minus 1 to my mind is 0. So how can you talk about reduction if, in fact, you got a policy which is plus 1 minus 1? Not 1 for 1, but so I don't know how many hundreds of irritants have been removed. But in my consultation with the Chambers of Commerce, they don't feel that there's been much reduction of red tape from the federal government over the last 2 years. It's a rather stagnant situation. We might lose one, but they replace it with one, so it's pretty much par. Well, as Minister Bernier indicated, I believe that we did succeed in reducing some of the administrative overhead, if you will. Compressed a number of steps.
Earlier, The action plan introduces 6 fundamental system-wide reforms, and this has led already to 90 department-specific changes. And again, to reinforce what Minister Bernier said, perhaps the most important change is this one-for-one rule, which...
Oui, mais 1 plus 1 moins 1 fait 0, ça fait pas moins.
Yes, but you add one and you take one away and you add one, that's still 0, no change. No, I understand full well what you're saying. It's a zero-sum game, but it's not an addition of another rule. Now, as for the case pops or the co-op savings institutions, this is going to be a hindrance to SMEs because contrary to what the government may contend, case pups or savings co-ops exist in all sorts of communities, small communities, which have never received any assistance from the major banks. So how can you justify that? Or what's the perspective? I mean, 70% of SMEs are in fact sustained by these credit co-ops in the regions. And if you weaken the credit institutions, you're going to weaken SMEs in the regions.
Finance. What I might say, though, because you've mentioned the Caisse de dépôt or the Caisse de crédit, is really change the topic a little bit and just recognize that the department, the industry department, has taken on new responsibilities recently with respect to cooperatives.
Est-ce qu'il y a une chance, si on peut argumenter que les PME de région sont affectés, est-ce qu'il y a une chance qu'on cesse?
Is there any possibility? Because if you eliminate between 2012, I mean, that's a deadline for phasing this out. Is there an opportunity? Will there be an opportunity or a chance that the co-ops can speak up and say, look, this is not a good reform? And if the chartered banks, if the majors were prepared to finance SMEs, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, I wouldn't even bother raising the issue. But right now, that is not the case. If they were not for the credit co-ops, particularly in the regions, the SMEs would die. Well, I'm convinced that SMEs are extremely important and vital for the Canadian economy, even in terms of taxation and revenue, etc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nutley. Mr. Lapointe. Now on to Mr. Lake for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for making yourselves available at a atypical hour for committee, so that we could hear from you a little bit more today. Just want to maybe talk a little bit about the Emerson report, if we could, and maybe you could start by kind of giving a background to why the report came about, or how that report came about. What the mission of the group looking into the issues was, and then maybe elaborate a little bit on the stakeholder reaction to the report. What have we heard from stakeholders since the report was released, and maybe in conjunction with the measures that are contained in the budget in reaction or in response to the report?
Mr. Chair, I'd be very happy to do that. So the Emerson report was tasked by the Government of Canada on February 27th, 2012. I think the context for this work is very much the issue of competitiveness of the aerospace sector, and of course the aerospace sector is exceedingly important across the country, particularly Quebec, Ontario, but also BC, and some important activity I know in Atlantic Canada, where I once worked. The way the study worked was the Honourable David Emerson was the head of the review, and he was assisted by a 3-member advisory council, including Sandra Papatello from Ontario, Jim Quick, who's from the association, and Dr. Jacques Roy. November 29th, the final report was released. There's really 2 parts to it. One focused exclusively on the aero side, and the second focused on space. In terms of the response of the stakeholders, very positive. I think throughout the process, David Emerson and his advisory council spent a lot of time involving stakeholders. There were various subcommittees on specific issues, which eventually led to the specific recommendations. Key themes in the report are innovation, market access and development, supplier development, workforce skills and training, and of course procurement. And procurement has been highlighted in the budget, as you've seen, not only with respect to the aerospace sector, but more broadly. As we move forward, the government is certainly, we're working with the government to ensure that we respond quickly to the recommendations. And the budget itself refers to $1 billion over 5 years for the Strategic Aerospace and Defense Initiative, $110 million over 4 years, and $55 million annually for the Aerospace Technology Demonstration Program, which Minister Parody referenced. We're also launching further consultations in the coming months on the creation of a National Aerospace Research and Technology Network. This was something I think in the consultations around the report, stakeholders were particularly keen to create a national network. I think there's a very solid network already in Quebec that we're wanting to build on, and it was cited as a best practice. And finally, in terms of moving forward, and this is the area of Transport Canada, there's a review of cost recovery rates for aircraft safety certification to ensure the National Aircraft Certification Program can respond and grow to demand. And this was a particular request from the stakeholders, recognizing the need to have rapid response in the area of transportation safety in the aero sector in order to be competitive globally.
Okay, so I've got 1 minute left. I'll just a very basic question. Maybe in regards to that, maybe you could speak for that last minute of Canada's position in the global aerospace industry.
Well, I think Canada, as many of you know, has a very strong aerospace sector, and has traditionally done well in that sector in terms of participating in the North American market and the European market. I think as we look forward, the real challenge, as in many sectors, is the emergence of production in emerging markets, particularly China, for example, who are developing rapidly their capacity in this area, and also developing rapidly new production. So I think one of the big issues in order to remain competitive is, can we put our industry in a position to participate effectively in these new emerging markets?
Thank you, Mr. Nubley. We are now moving to our final round. With the time the way it is, to be as fair as possible, we'll have 4 people, Conservative, NDP, Conservative, Liberal, and we'll do 4 minutes. And then that way everybody will get an opportunity, particularly Mr. Regan, who's waited here and should have the opportunity to question. So Mr. Braid for 4 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Actually, I want to stay on this theme that I touched on earlier of the importance of intellectual property, and I'm seeing in the estimates, the main estimates for Industry Canada, page 187 and 188, the following page 188 specifically, I'm seeing an increase of $6.7 million for the Canadian Intellectual Property Office as part of a strategy to upgrade that organization's IT infrastructure. Given the importance of CIPO and of intellectual property, I'm pleased to see this investment, actually. Could you, I guess my question is the following. Will this investment help to modernize CIPO, and will it also help to streamline the patent process?
Well, what I can say is that with respect to, I think, this particular expenditure, it's very much dealing with the fact that they have legacy systems in place, as many departments do, and moving to a modern IT system in the CIPO area. And this is a priority for the organization, and in the long run should help modernize the processes around that because of a stronger foundation from the IT system. What I can also add that I know the organization is also spending a lot of time engaging and consulting with stakeholders around the mandate of the organization, and is looking very much at the issues you're raising in terms of how can the CIPO as an organization serve better the activities of small, medium business enterprises, and to do it in a streamlined way. And I think Sylvain, who heads the organization, is spending a lot of time encouraging his CIPO to reach out to stakeholders around these issues.
Great. Thank you. That's a very helpful response. I guess perhaps a more general question in terms of overarching themes. Many of the initiatives that both ministers spoke about seem to touch on the importance of two critical objectives for our country. One is accelerating entrepreneurship, and the second is fostering innovation. Could you just elaborate on why those two objectives, those two public policy objectives, are so important, and how we're helping to achieve them?
Well, what I will say is that the department actually has three strategic objectives, and that's typically always shown in our documentation. And those three objectives are probably worthwhile reviewing, and they touch on the two issues you raised. First objective is to ensure that the Canadian marketplace is efficient and competitive. It's about getting the economic framework right. So, of course, the issues at play there are policies and programs and modern legislation and policies to support competition, investment, corporate and insolvency law, copyright, patents, and trademarks. And the recent work that you've been doing is very much in the area of this strategic objective in terms of an IP regime, and we look forward to continuing to review the work that you've done here and to work with you on that. Our second strategic objective is improving the knowledge-based economy through innovation and research and development. And Minister Goodyear, who appeared here a few weeks ago, I think really covered the issues here in great detail. But the strategic objective of Industry Canada is to really put in place measures to help Canadian businesses and universities to be at the forefront of global innovation and scientific development. And of course, what we've done in terms of in Budget 2000, the recent budget, is taken a number of steps in terms of refunding the granting councils, the funding of the National Research Council, and its transformation are examples of the kind of initiatives that are related to this strategic objective. And then lastly, the third strategic objective is just focusing on Canadian business and communities. And so all of the things we've talked about in terms of small business and tourism are specific aspects of that.
Thank you
so
very
these
much.
three areas are really the fundamental priorities of the department, and all with the aim, of course, of supporting business and industry in Canada to be more competitive and productive.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Braid. Now to Madame LeBlanc.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much once again for staying on so long. You alluded just now to the transfer responsibility of the cooperatives, agricultural co-ops, and to Industry Canada cooperatives in general. What sums of money are being allotted to manage these new responsibilities within the department? And if the former cooperatives program, the Cooperative Development Initiative, will it be reestablished as a program? It was quite successful, and apparently it's been phased out. What will happen to the Secretariat as well?
File at Industry Canada are within my group. My group has a unit called the Strategic Policy Group, in which these experts are situated. In addition, my group includes the regional executive directors for each region of Industry Canada. And what I've done is establish a matrix across the 5 regions so that the regional executive directors and their staff reach out, engage, and work with the co-op movement. So the result is actually to leverage resources across my sector. They're the people who are working on the file. With respect to your second question with the program, we do not have plans or funds at the moment for that program.
So was there funds allocated, though, to embark in this new, with this new responsibility? Were there funds allocated to your department, which was already a department in itself, supplementary funds that were allocated in order to receive this new responsibility and to bring about the objectives set out to help the cooperative sectors?
Oui, il y avait un montant, et puis nous sommes toujours en discussion avec...
Well, we are currently discussing with the former department that was charged with this to see how we're going to transfer these funds.
The idea here was and part of the logic of the move, if you like, was to really try and take advantage of the existing resources that Industry Canada has, particularly from a regional perspective.
Alors, on espère que dans le prochain budget, il y aura des ressources.
Well, we hope then that in the next budget there might be adequate resources so that they can continue. I have a further question, if I may share my time with a colleague. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the 2013 budget, there's a voluntary code of conduct. It's a code of conduct, right? It's not a department, it's not a policy, it's a code of conduct. We know that 64% of economists who have been approached on this issue, in Quebec at least, 64% agree, and if you agree strongly or agree somewhat, to regulate excessive fees charged to merchants by credit card companies. Now, we don't find any reference to that anywhere in the budget. But there's a quasi-consensus in the industry, in the sector, that there's overcharges here. There's even the Federation of Independent Business that agrees. Whether it's a service station, a retailer, everybody feels that these should be regulated. They should call back some of these surcharges. Well, once again, this is a subject which is under the responsibility of the Department of Finance. But these are SMEs that find excessive, well, as far as taxation or credit card charges, it's often the responsibility of the Department of Finance and Minister Flaherty. On two other issues, there was some impact of employment, not or the non-regulation of Visa cards, for example, or credit cards. That Mr. Nubley says, can we follow up on that? That we get the information. The committee receives some information on these two committees. What kind of follow-up? Well, Mr. Nubley, I believe, agreed to follow up on two issues already. Just a moment ago, on the non-regulation of credit cards, and the other is the job creation program. I believe he did say that he could forward us some further information. I'd like to make sure that we do get that information.
That's a Department of Finance, but I mean, if there's something that you would like to forward, then that's fine. On the other issue, do you have some information that you can forward to the committee that I can distribute, Mr. Nubley?
Again, we'll have to touch base with the Department of Finance to determine what can be done there. But, Marie-Josée, perhaps you could just speak more generally about the role that we have with respect to small business.
Alors, merci aux membres du comité.
Thanks to the members of the committee. Essentially, anything dealing with SMEs, small and medium enterprises, this is a horizontal issue, if you will, and it's interdepartmental very often. So our specific role is to have an overview function of what's going on, but the specific functions, tasks, or responsibilities may be vested in another department. We have a number of co-managed programs with Industry Canada, for example. The financing of small and medium-sized, the BDC is part of our portfolio, Industry Canada. The Young Entrepreneurs Foundation of Canada is also under the umbrella of Industry Canada. The BizPal program, which was mentioned earlier, is also offered in partnership with provinces and municipalities, but we're responsible for the coordination of the administration. All the IRAP-style programs is within Industry Canada. The network for entrepreneurship, Industry Canada. So there's a number of these issues that are shared, if you will, between the two ministers, Mr. Paradis, Mr. Bernier, and have impact on SMEs. But the various specific implementation measures are with other departments.
We're way over for this time, and I need to allow Mr. Regan to have his 5 minutes. Is that if you just look at Mr. Lapointe's testimony and anything that falls within the purview of your responsibility, if you'd submit any additional information to the committee, that would be great.
I'd be happy to do that.
To the clerk, yes. Thank you very much. Mr. Regan for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Minister mentioned wall communication study done by them for Industry Canada in relation to the price of a cell phone cost in Canada. Wall communications. Can you tell me how much Industry Canada paid for this study? Was it sole sourced? And are you able to provide the committee with a copy of the report?
We'll have to look into that and come back to you. I'm not aware of these specifics.
Thank you.
Happy to provide that to you.
Thank you. In relation to the changes proposed to the Industry Canada Act, in December, after the CNOOC decision, the rules changed for the energy sector. Does C60 extend these changes to all other sectors? If so, why? If not, why not?
I think that, again, going over what happened in terms of the announcement December 7th by the Prime Minister, basically the government announced clarification to the foreign investment review process, and particularly in terms of state-owned enterprises. And, I mean, the bottom lines are that investments in the oil sands will be found of net benefit only on exceptional basis.
But this is
and any other state
strictly to the oil sector, only the oil sector, right?
Well, oil sands. Actually, it's very specific to the oil sands. And then for the other sectors, the rule that we have is that we monitor any carefully any other state-owned enterprise acquisition in the natural resources sector, but indeed any sector.
Okay.
And the two tests, and maybe that's helpful for the committee to be aware, are really related to the commercial orientation of the state-owned enterprise, as well as demonstrating what kind of relationship it has with the home country.
Thank you. Mr. Nubley, the regional municipality of Durham has written to the minister asking that he set aside rural areas from urban areas and deal with them separately in the next spectrum auction this fall to ensure that rural internet providers can avail themselves of much-needed licensed spectrum. It seems to me that if you really wanted to end the way that spectrum licensing discriminates against rural Canadians, the minister would review this policy of bundling rural and urban together. Is the department considering this, or is the minister considering this?
Well, we're really undertaking a broad set of consultations on all these issues, and I think the short answer is that certainly this issue of rural coverage and implications is one that we're taking very seriously.
Thank you. The Canadian Advanced Technology Alliance, which describes itself as Canada's largest high-tech association, has recommended that Industry Canada accommodate mHealth in its spectrum allocation review. CADA says that research estimates that the universal adoption of mHealth would result in annual health care savings of 5 to 10%, which, of course, across Canada would be enormous. Does Industry Canada intend to act on this recommendation to accommodate mHealth in its spectrum allocation? If so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, again, I think what I can say today is certainly we're aware of this recommendation. I think we believe we are undertaking these auctions in order to provide spectrum to the various companies in the sector in order to allow for many new practices to be undertaken which are competitive. And this is a big issue for the country because the data shows, of course, that Canada lags in terms of adoption of leading IT practices with the United States significantly. So without responding specifically, Mr. Chair, to that particular issue, we're looking at that and of course, wanting to ensure that we have a competitive ICT sector in the country.
Thank you. The Public Interest Advocacy Centre recently released a report that's entitled Transparency and Broadband Advertising to Canadian Consumers. And the report suggests that consumers are not effectively informed about Internet speed and performance claims made by their ISPs. Is it the Department's view that ISPs need to be more complete and precise in their disclosure about the various aspects of Internet performance and the reliability of their so-called up-to advertising claims? Do you see a need for enforcement guidelines focused on how these claims are conveyed to consumers, and what are you doing about that?
So this is not an issue I'm yet up to speed on, so I'd be happy to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
It should be, it's fair to mention that the Conservatives passed in their spot, so everybody get a 5-minute spot. And thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you for researchers, clerks, and all other staff for staying late. We appreciate your help. The meeting's adjourned.